My name's Paul Donovan, if you don't know me. So my talk is what no code reviews. First thing, does anyone here do code reviews? Hands up. Okay. Does anyone here do pair programming? Hands up. Does anyone here do mob programming? Oh man, speaking to the converted. I don't know, is there any point in it anymore? So, all right, so, well, industry-wide, we say code reviews are a good thing, right? Agree? Yeah. We don't do them on our teams. So let's go back to the beginning. I've been here 3 years now. We worked with one of the clients, I don't think I'm allowed to say, but you all know who I work for, we're allowed to say in here. It's on the, yeah, so we work for, so I work on a project called Workflow, which is, how do you say, it tracks all sort of work coming into a company and then it gets routed around to different departments. There's a really old legacy app that is past its sell-by date and needs to be upgraded, and the upgrade will break a lot of the screens that work. So Head Forwards were tasked with coming in to replace that with a sort of facade-y type thing and some new screens so they could upgrade when they wanted or swap it out with a different back end. So I think they got us in for that, and also to help facilitate their move towards an agile process. So I was recruited part of that team along with James, who else is here? Brent's gone, Barney, Gary, who's not here I don't think, and Dave was our Scrum Master to start with. Anyone else was there? No, that was it, wasn't it, I think. So we were given a brief of, we had to write this stack, so we had like a back-end web service that interacts with this legacy system that would be like our facade for getting the data in and out. Then it had to talk over an ESB, and then on the other side we had another web service because they had this infrastructure rules whereby you had to have a service encapsulating the ESB call, and then we had got front-end servers serving up a ASP.NET MVC app. So we sort of did it in an agile way. So all forgotten here. We wanted to, as a team, we wanted to have Bdd tests. So we were using Selenium, or we decided on using Selenium and the Gherkin language. We took the sort of requirement, what do you call them? Oh, I forgot now. Acceptance criteria, that's right, thanks Jeremy. Acceptance criteria and used those into the Gherkin language, and we sort of learnt our way around with that. We wanted good unit test coverage because I think, if I'm right in saying, Dave, is that right? Unit tests weren't really a big thing at the time. I hope there's no one here who's going to disagree. We had sprint lengths of, we decided on 3 weeks to start with, and we wanted code reviews. We did code reviews. So we sort of worked on the basic stuff to start with, like authentication, the first displaying of a simple bit of data coming from that system. We're feeling pretty smug, right? This is pretty good. We've got good code coverage, we've got Bdd Test exercising, Selenium. Yeah, we're rocking it, I think. We hit the curse of the smug. As things got more complicated, we realised we were doing development-driven testing, which I've made up, which is meaningless. But what I actually mean by that is when we were doing our back-end C# code, so we're writing in C# in Microsoft environment, we were focused on getting the actual product working. So we'd write the code, and then towards the end of our sprint, we'd say, oh, we want tests, so we'd write tests. But what we'd find is we'd have to refactor all our code to allow us to do proper unit tests on them. That sort of incurred time. So it wasn't very good practice. Also, we all worked individually on user stories on our own, so we became pretty siloed. No sort of, well, there was collaboration, obviously, because we're working as a team, but you still get pretty focused on one thing, and then you sort of, you become a domain expert of certain areas, which I don't think is a great thing. Code reviews were often ignored or rushed. Brent was excellent at them. Brent's not here anymore, so if he'd have left, we'd have been buggered, because James was better than me, but me and Barney were pretty rubbish. Would you care to say? Yeah, pretty rubbish at them. Dave, every morning, every end of sprint, would moan at us, well, you haven't done your code reviews. And we're like, all right. And then we'd have all these messages coming through. So we weren't really doing code reviews, which is pretty bad practice, which we've all, I think, established. We also decided our sprint length was way too long. Why do I say that? 3 weeks, you could do quite a bit of work. Well, others can, I probably can't, but you can do quite a bit of work in that thing. But 3 weeks, it's hard to sort of plan on 3 weeks. Well, I feel it's hard to plan on 3 weeks. It's hard to understand if you're doing some code of what you're trying to achieve in that 3 months. 3 weeks, sorry, 3 months. 3 months would be terrible, but 3 weeks is bad enough, because you can't really see that far ahead, I don't think. And Dave was sort of coaching us at this point, and he was sort of suggesting things to us, but he sort of started us on this three week thing. We also, I mentioned the Bdd tests. So with Selenium, they started becoming flaky, because I don't know if anyone else has used Selenium and find them a bit flaky. So we were using them to exercise the application, and it was a bit flaky, and you don't want flaky tests. We've got a CI pipeline, we want to check in, we want everything to be green, right? We were getting reds, and we're like, no, we know that's working, so we were ignoring our tests. That's pretty bad, right? You ignore your tests, what's the point in them? So, thought about improving stuff. How are we going to do it? We reduced our sprint length to 1 week. Now, I don't know what sprint lengths are in here, but when Dave suggested it, I thought he was mad. But it works really well, I think. Keeps you focused. It makes the job simpler. The hard thing is you're cutting your stories down to work in a week, because you want to add value in a week. What can you do there? Maybe add a button. Doesn't sound a lot, but adding a button can be quite complicated. We introduced pair programming. Now, I didn't want to do this. Everyone was going to see my dirty laundry then, weren't they? So, and realised I couldn't program. So that was like, I didn't want to do any of that. Imposter syndrome's coming out there, so, not a good thing for me. But, it started working well. We started doing proper TDD on C# code, on our back-end code, which helped us structure our code a lot better. So that it sort of helped me understand all these acronyms like solid, you're not going to need it again, and stuff like that, all that sort of thing. It all started, light came on, I think, a few times on, why haven't I been doing this for a while? I mentioned we had flaky tests. We decided to mock the back end. So we were our Selenium tests, we were exercising the whole stack, and we had, as I mentioned, a legacy system that we're trying to interact with. So we got real-time problems with timeouts and stuff like that, or data moving, making our tests flaky. So we thought, right, let's just mock the back end, and we created this, what we called a dev integration environment, which just served up canned data, of recorded data of what we wanted to do. So we're pretty smug, right? Things are going well, our tests are great, we're rocking it again. TDD, yeah, we're doing good stuff. But curse of the smug again. So really, as I've touched on the previous slide, our BDD was front-end unit tests. We had a lot, what was that next? Yeah, so we had a lot of JavaScript on our front end. Because we were working, again, pair programming, we were, the front-end JavaScript was just sort of, for want of a better word, sort of toshed together. And we would use the Bdd Test to exercise to make sure it worked all right. Now that was good, it was working, but didn't leave our code base in a very good state, not very extendable. Devs were still siloed, even though we're pair programming. You still found that two people would work on one sort of area of the code, and then the next time that was to be revisited, they would have to do it again because they would pick it up. They would pick it up easier, etc. So what did we do? So this is where we are now. Right, so we got to that point, so we realised we had flaky tests, we were siloed, we were, our check-in times, our test times were like up to about half an hour, I think, and they were still flaky. So a new system was needed to be integrated into our app. Our app's quite data-driven, and so we were using the MVC pattern, and we knew that a SPA pattern would work better. We didn't really know how to do it. And previously on Workflow, sounds like a Netflix thing, but previously on Workflow, we'd had a problem where we wanted to work out how to search our legacy back end, and we didn't really know how to do it, and we all got in a room together and talked through the problem, and we spent about a week or two doing it, and we came up with an excellent solution, and it worked, and the code was pretty good. We didn't think anything of it at the time, so when we were talking about how we were going to refactor and re-engineer the application to be a SPA app, we knew, as I said, that we had neglected our JavaScript code, and we decided because we'd done this sort of all groupthink on the search, we would do that. So we got the people that we worked with down, and we sort of did a spike of how we would do the SPA app. Now that worked really well, and we introduced JavaScript testing. I wasn't really a JavaScript programmer at the time, and we'd always been ignoring JavaScript tests. We always said, we should be doing these, but never done them. So we brought them down, and we did a little spike, and then we thought, do you know what, this is working really well. So we started the mob. So we started mobbing, and we didn't really mean to carry on mobbing. We just thought we'd use it till we got to know how the pattern would work on the front end. But that was over a year ago now, and we haven't stopped. We haven't stopped mobbing, and I can guarantee, well, I can't guarantee, I can say from my heart it's the best thing I've learned in programming, or best technique in programming. And I've been in IT since I was 20, so I'm about 25 years plus. And it's the best thing, that and coupled with TDD is the best thing I've come across for helping you progress quality software. So better TDD, we learned how to do TDD better, I think, as a group. We now have unit tests for our front end. And our Bdd tests aren't really Bdd tests now, they're just smoke tests and integration tests, because the way we structured the front end SPA, we used the MVVM pattern because people had worked on sort of WPF thing, and that was a pattern that Microsoft pushed a few years ago. I know it's it's a well-known pattern. So we've got like JavaScript view models on the front end that we test independently of the view, and then we got a view test which exercises the buttons and makes sure things are bound correctly. So really, all that exercising, what we were using Selenium for, went away. And all we really needed to check was that when we deployed, our configuration was correct at that point. So all it does is just logs in, can I view a work packet, can I do a couple of functions, job done. That's it. So I think I mentioned our flaky tests were taking about half an hour. On our VSTS board, which I think would be like, I don't know, what's the sort of open source equivalent of VSTS, Dave? Is that Jenkins? Yeah. So it's always red, and it was being a bit OCD. I used to hate it. I'm colourblind, so I couldn't see it, but I knew it was bad. So you said, but now it's all green, our builds are good, and it's really, really good way to work. And this is the best thing, we don't have to do code reviews because we're all mobbing, so we're perpetually code reviewing. So, hence the title, no code reviews. That's really all I've got to say. But we're still pretty smug, so I don't know what's going to bite us next, but I'm sure there will be, and we'll learn something from it. So I think the main thing of the talk is mobbing is excellent, TDD is excellent, and also that iterative journey as a team, learning as a team together. And I think mobbing personally helps that, helps you interact. And don't get me wrong, when I started at Head Forwards, I was a bit worried because I knew I was going to have to do pair programming, I knew I was going to have code reviews, and as I mentioned, it's like showing your dirty laundry and a bit of imposter syndrome. But it's really helped me. I've learned so much in the last 3 years, and there's so many good people in this company that you can leverage and learn from, and I think mobbing helps that really well. So, I've said a few for and against, so mobbing for and against, I said my fors. I've got 3 dudes at the front. Sorry, no dudettes. We should have got a dudette, really. That can come up and maybe make the case for mobbing on their different thing. Oh, so what happened was, so our team workflow sort of started it on the corridor upstairs, and it sort of organically grew down the corridor. I don't think anything to do with us, but we would just talk about it in the, as you can tell, I can sort of talk quite a lot. So in the kitchen making cups of tea, I'd always, oh, you want to try mobbing? And then other people tried it and seemed to like it. So, I don't know, Barney, got anything to say? Anything to add?
How many tests are you running now on your front end?
2,000.
2,000?
Yeah.
How's it taking?
Under a minute. And then we've got delays in there, so if we could sort out, we use Knockout, and we haven't worked out a way of understanding when Knockout's loaded all its subcomponents. We've got a lot of wait fors in there, so I think if we reduced that, it would be down to 30 seconds, I would say, probably less. And we got 2,000 odd. So we got, I think, when we had the sort of everything exercised through Selenium, we had like an hourglass test sort of layout. So we'd have a lot on the back end, sort of some on the services, and then loads on the front end. So that's not really what the sort of academics say that you should be doing. It should be more like a pyramid. So since we've gone to having true unit tests for our JavaScript, I think we've achieved that pyramid by saying that when our integration tests, stroke BDD tests, whatever you want to call them, they're not really BDD tests. I suppose they are. I don't know, I'm conflicted about that. But really they're sort of integration tests. But we have got to that pyramid shape, and it's good, I think. So you took it over to outputs, right?
Yeah, so I was on the workflow team where we started mobbing. I then ran away, left, and joined the outputs team. And when I arrived, there wasn't much in the way of unit testing, and there wasn't much in the way of mobbing. There were only 3 of us, so we started working together. Our code coverage is now up to 98%, I think, in unit tests. We are just starting the journey of using React, and we have currently, is someone here? Yeah. There it is. We've got 1 test working this morning. But with mobbing, and I have found it to be amazing. It really good. I have found the transfer of knowledge has been excellent. I've learned so much from James and Paul whilst mobbing. You don't get that downtime when you're thinking, oh, how do I do this? Because you discuss it instantly with your friends. You're there chatting about how are we going to approach this, what are we going to do? And the solutions just work themselves. Mm. It's brilliant. I really like the fact that nobody gets precious about their code. I used to write a piece of code, someone come look at it, go, there's a bug. No, there's not. and yeah, it found that really useful. Because you're writing the code, isn't it? You don't get precious about it. You don't, and you spend 2 days writing it again. Well, that didn't really work. So we bin it. Yeah, okay. Start it again. We spent 2 days learning and to write it properly.
Yeah, that's right. So we've thrown away a lot of code. So an against thing, I would say it's tiring to start with. We all got fatigued. I found it very tiring because you constantly. But I think you learn to. There was a talk by, and I'm terrible with names. Woody Zool, is it? Yeah. He did something, and I think did we ask him afterwards or something about fatigue, or he might have brought it up in a speech, and I think he said, don't be disciplined about it. If you want a time out, because that's what. And I think James says that, when you're working on your own, you do have that time out zone. You think about what you're going to buy next on the internet that you don't need, or when you're going to have your next beer, or when you're going to go home. I know, just things like that. So that sort of natural thing. Another against is we've had some delicious arguments. But that's a good thing. Constructive discussions. But honestly, it's always been, toys have been thrown out for half an hour or so, but it's been really, really good. And really, no one has ever won those arguments. You've always come to sort of a democratic solution, better than Brexit anyway, but that everyone's on board with. And you learn from those discussions as well, because you learn from everyone else's opinion. And I'm the worst because I'm just want to refactor everything and make it look really good. And my colleagues, you do simpler. So James, have you got any inputs into good things I missed?
For the whole DevOps drive, I think it's good from that point of view when you're all designing everything together. You're designing the back end, front end, and everyone knows how to address failures with that, in theory, hopefully. But it has definitely reduced the amount of critical live bugs we've had since.
Yeah. Be nice if Gary was here to confirm that, but I think Gary's one of our testers. Great. It's great to have a tester on your team as well, I think, as well. Never really worked with that. It's always been a chuck over the fence to the users, or maybe a test thing, but to have someone actually on your team testing, keeps us honest. We need to work out a way of integrating the tester better into our team. And with that, I'm going to talk to Jeremy, because I know Jeremy does a bit of mobbing, and your testers on the team, right?
Yeah, that's a new show. You're in a mob the whole time, aren't you? Yeah. Which is invaluable, to be honest, because the stuff she spots from a different perspective. And mobbing with tester just gives you that perspective immediately. It's excellent. I think. Do
you find your code quality's improved from it?
Yeah, I am almost afraid to code by myself now. Honestly, if I took away and TDD, if I stopped doing TDD and didn't mob, I don't know what my code would do. It would just meander into some cesspool.
Well, that's exactly how I feel from it as well. So that's why Dave's been hassling me to do a speech for 3 years, I think now, and that's why I wanted to do this speech really on mobbing. And Barney had approached me about TDD, and I feel they dovetail really well. And two things that I've learned that have really revolutionised how I work and how I perceive I'd like to work in the future, I think.
Definitely big challenges, I found. So there's a massive amount of force, obviously, but the againsts are big ones. So if you just can't get your team to gel, for example, then it's so hard, and just in my experience, it's just so hard to get your mob to become a unit and kind of form a unified view.
But I think you can learn that, can't you?
Yeah, you can, and I guess that's why it's so hard.
Yeah, it is hard, and maybe that's the fatigue at the start that we experience, because I suppose companies always want teamwork, and it promotes teamwork, but you have to learn that, I suppose, as a team, because
teamwork, you've got to talk to people.
Yeah, you've got to talk to people. One downside for me is I used to love coding and listen to music all day, but I wonder if I was listening to music more than I was coding. So I missed that stage of being able to listen to music, but...
We started putting music on.
Have you?
Yeah, cool.
I'm joining your team. But the arguments will be then on what music's being played,
Well,
right?
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Joe switches the music.
So to mention, Barney had spoken to me, and I had spoken to someone else about how I thought we should take this around other companies in Cornwall. So there's a tech event coming up called FutureSync, right? And that's at the end of the month. So we're taking us four at the front. This is why I've got these stooges at the front with us. We're taking this to FutureSync and do a little talk on why we think mobbing and TDD is a really good thing, and then we're going to try and going to try and achieve
Live mob.
yeah, for a day-long mob, and we're going to try and get them to build an app using a perpetual mobbing thing going on where people can drop in and drop out. Have we decided on what the app's going to be?
Bitcoin, yeah.
Was it? Make us rich, was it? Something.
So we've gone from rain talks to making art.
No, I think Jeremy hit it. I think we're going to say do something like rate the best talk or something like that, and try and get that up and running by the end of the event. Whether that is achievable or not is a different matter, but we'll let you know.
Are we going to let another team do? This is just off the cuff. Individuals versus the mob. 2 apps.
Oh, I don't know. We haven't discussed that. We could do, couldn't we?
One poor developer on his own.
Yeah, exactly. Versus a team.
So that's an interesting thing. It's another downside, and I think Mike and Dave might be able to help on this a bit more. I think it's hard to sell to management because, like, you got 4 developers, right? Well, you'd all want them to work on their own bit of code to get more work done. I don't believe that we get any more work done if we silo. I think you might get a feature quicker, but that feature will be bug-ridden and you just end up going back. I think also the siloing that happens, so when so-and-so's away, someone else has got to read that code and try and work out. I think, as James, I think, mentioned, the code is simpler and the whole team has investment in that code and understands it and knows where to go. All right, you're going to forget stuff, but literally someone says, oh, don't you remember that? Oh, yeah, I remember that. So I think from that sort of things, it's a pretty good way to go, personally. So that's really my take. And now, tab. See, I told you I was rubbish at this technical stuff. All right, tab. No! Hang on. So I think you were asked to bring your phones, and we wanted you to do a poll for us. Does that come up? No? No? Is it that one? Show results. Hey! God, it's wonderful this.
We had the idea of 10%.
As a company, you've got 0.9.
All right. 29, so I reckon that's probably about everyone. Should we quiz the 10% or should we let them go unchallenged?
You need to work out why they're wrong.
No, it would be interesting to know. It would be interesting to know who hates it and why. If they want to care to share it, if they're not, it don't matter. Because I disagree with you, and I'm right.
Paul, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
How many repos do you have? How many repos do you have? So everybody's mobbing, is that one big repo?
Yeah, one big repo. Our repo isn't very well sophisticated.
Do you think that the same mobbing technique could be applied to, for example, microservices? Because in the other building we have over 100 microservices, and if we all mob, different teams, if they all mob on the microservices they own, I feel we might lose velocity. So I don't know if that could be applied to.
So I'm not sure. Why is it any different? Is my question. How do you work at the moment, I suppose?
Well, in the standard way. So each team owns a set of microservices, and everybody within the team picks different tasks from the backlog.
From the backlog. So you're saying if they worked on one Microsoft service at a time, you're going to slow down?
just up for debate. That's
No, and it is.
Quite a lot of research around minimising work in progress, and that's a way of speeding up your throughput and your velocity. So all mobbing really does is force you to reduce your work in progress, which shouldn't really make a difference whether you're
sure, but if we have deadlines on 3 different projects within 2 weeks,
that's the problem, isn't it?
well, exactly.
Perceived lack of velocity is due to probably like next to churning more than you probably should be. That's what we found. We found when we accepted that you're going to be writing code more slowly, but writing code that is more maintainable and easier to maintain and bug fix and live, and the payoff is there, rather than saying, I'm not churning all this stuff out, getting live, and then the day later you're getting critical bugs rolling in, you're like, oh, stop the sprint, we've got hot fixes to do. So that's how I'd approach that.
Doing it, find out to try it,
Yeah.
sort of that experimentation. You could
That's-
try it for a few sprints and see whether it is slower or, because it will be different for each team.
It's really hard to quantify that, and it's really hard to answer, and because intuitively it doesn't seem right way to work. But from experience, we feel that okay, we might be not delivering features, which I think James has sort of Dave sort of touched on. We might not be delivering features as quick, but we get less rework and better understanding throughout the team, I think. And I think that's the benefit. I don't think and I think that's why I said it's hard to sell sometimes, to sell it up to the management that this is a good thing to do. But that's, I mean, listen, this is only my experience, but I think if I look back on where I worked before in previous companies, devs would always get siloed. Oh, he's the database guy, he's the front end guy, he's the maths guy, or something like that, and then you got stuck in it. So then you naturally cause divisions in your team, not horrible divisions, but just siloed, and I don't think that's what worked, and it's most beneficial. But I was resistant to it. I didn't really want to do it. I didn't want to talk to these lot. I wanted to listen to music all day. So.
I think it's always debatable, right? Because it depends on the client, and then because it always matters like product and then money. Time is money. That's what client thinks. So you want to build faster applications with good quality, and the clients are needy. So if you do more, it will, of course, comparatively take more time than you do individually. But you build quality systems.
But that's why we don't, and I agree, and that's the challenge you have. But I'm not sure that the time. I think the time.
Yeah, my experience is that the time factor initially might be an issue, but once you become a real gelled working unit, actually you're probably faster.
Yeah.
I think that we're faster.
Yeah, I would say we're faster in getting a solid solution out, definitely. We might, like I say, it might perceive time from the client might be slower. And the sad thing is we wish now that we'd taken stats from day one, day one of our thing, so we could actually quantify this, because we got and I think Jeremy looked into some papers on how you quantify whether it's faster or not. Look, don't get me wrong, it's a hard sell, and it doesn't make sense that your churn rate, you feel like you're not going to go as fast, but my gut feel is we are at least as fast, but the quality is better.
Like, everyone when you write code says we're going to write these components that are reusable wherever, yeah? But you don't. You usually just write a one-off thing that just sits there, and that's it. I think when you're writing everything together, you do realise, we've done this as a pattern before, and you actively sit there and refactor that pattern to actually become a shared component you can use multiple times across the back end, the front end, wherever it needs to be. And that's another kind of time-saving feature in a way, because you've got 75% of the code there. You just need to get together, put some thought into it, and figure out how to open that API up to be reused.
And I think, it's sort of expand on that as well. So when you're discussing your code, like I think I mentioned it before, you come to sort of a democratic outcome of how the code should be, but it's normally a good way because you've all discussed it, and then that flavour of coding goes throughout the whole code base. Instead of other projects where I've been, you'd open a bit of code and think, oh, what's this guy doing? What's this all about? And then not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just you don't understand it, and it's that time is a time sink, to go back to your thing of understanding someone else's code. So I think that's why you sort of move faster, I think, or not faster, or you move at a similar velocity, I think.
But you
But
have expected patterns that
yeah.
you're going to come across, right?
that you gravitate to as a team. Now, they might not be the right patterns, and you might be in that smug thing, that say, but you know that as a team, and you learn that as a team. So all these things I find are beneficial. Sorry, Toby wants.
So selling it to the customer and the client management is always a real challenge, because they don't really understand actually what goes on in enough detail, because they're too far away from it. So one of the things that and also this is a general rule of life really, is that if you try and tell somebody to do something or tell somebody something, then they don't necessarily truly believe it unless they discover it for themselves. So actually there's a phrase in Japanese which I can't remember. Craig can always remember it, but it's basically about come and see, and it's about get closer to the problem. It's about if you can get closer to what's actually happening, then you can actually observe and see for yourself, and you get more facts about what's and therefore better understanding. And one of the things I always say to people is like, if you go into a development room, so this is management who go, oh, how can that possibly be efficient? So just go into a room full of developers, right, and look at individuals, and then look at how much of the time they're actually typing on the keyboard writing code. And it's certainly not more than 50%. It's. I mean, I don't know I've never actually gone in with a stopwatch, but it's an interesting. If you watch, you watch people. How much of the time are we actually sitting there writing code? Probably less than 10%, maybe even less than that. And then actually, if you talk to a team that's been mobbing for a couple of hours, then they're completely exhausted. So, they're probably exhausted because they've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, collaborating, and typing. And so those are the key questions I always pose to management and customers, to actually get them to start thinking, oh, hang on a minute, perhaps this, maybe this does actually have merit, or maybe it doesn't, but most importantly, give them some exercises so that they can then go off and think about it in more detail. And then obviously all the other benefits of better quality, long-term quality, reducing bug fixes, that hot fixes that need doing 6 months later, and all that sort of stuff is another factor as well.
Yeah, Duncan.
You, man.
I'm conscious of time, but I'm also conscious of. So we had a bit of a mobbing session when we were talking about this event. So you were talking about maybe wanting to take this into other teams, other clients. So I think if anyone is interested in doing more, that I believe the four of you are happy to kind of consult. But I also think there's other stuff going on that we can all benefit from. So I know there's a lot of continuous delivery and containerisation and code being released very quickly in other teams. Microservices, yeah. So I think the event, the Going to Future Sync, came about because Barney came to me and said, well, people are talking about head forwards and you do continuous delivery and test-driven development and mobbing, but we don't really know what it is. And at the same time, we just happened to have an event booked and we weren't really sure what to do at it. And rather than just go and say, hey, we're hiring, we thought, oh, well, let's just take calls talk and take some people and just show people what we're doing. So we're interested to do that with other things as well, like whatever you're doing with microservices and continuous delivery. But I also think we can all do a lot more learning from each other. So I guess I'm offering them as consultants and asking for other consulting from other areas too, and also thinking about Agile on the Beach, that we might do some sort of mob there, but there might be other stuff that we can do. And I don't really know what all of it is, so I think if anyone's got any ideas, please come and find me or Toby. And if anyone wants any help with mobbing, then these four have offered their services.
Not coding, though.
My question, can you write our code for us as well?
Sorry?
Can you write our code for us?
Well, I could, but you
Paul, I have a
Yeah, right.
so I actually voted for the first one,
Yeah.
which you can see here.
Yeah.
And so, but basically, I have a few concerns against mobbing.
Okay.
So, do you say? I want to know if you say mobbing helps in code review, yes or no?
If it helps the code review. Well, I'd say it's a perpetual code review. We don't do code. That was the whole point of the talk. We don't do code reviews now because we're all mobbing, so we're perpetually code reviewing. So who's going to do our code review? So
The reason why I said is, if we are all on mobbing and we are on the same thought process, we won't be able to find if there is any mistake. Like, it won't be like another person coming and looking at our code. So that's something which I wanted to say.
okay, so I suppose that depends on how your code reviews were done. Our code reviews were done within the team. Now, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I would argue whether someone who is just picking up someone else's code and looking through is able to find that many problems anyway, bar style things and stuff like that. And I can only say that from my experience because I was a lazy code reviewer. And what I said about the...
It's good you said lady code review.
Did I say lady? Did I? Oh, sorry. Lazy code reviewer. Apologies. God, I'm rubbish.
It's got to be unique DJ name.
Yes, I'm really completely off
Sorry.
topic now. He's got these children at the front. So I can understand where you're coming from, but I think from our point of view, we always pull each other up when we think it's bad. So yes, I know what you're saying. It is a group think going on, but we always did our code reviews anyway. So I wonder how much is caught by code reviews and whether you're doing it as a mob. You're hoping to do the best you can as a mob anyway. So that is your code review.
Do you not think a code review is too late?
Sorry?
Do you not think a code review is too late to do it as well? Like
Yeah.
say either doesn't get done.
That's a
doesn't
good
get
point
done
because
well,
you're discussing.
It's already out there. It's already written.
Yeah.
And it works. So
What I used to like doing when people ask me code reviews, come along and suggest they completely rewrite it, which never went down well.
which would happen if you mobbed it.
Exactly. It's no use then, is it? I think if it's good enough to work and the variables all start with a lowercase letter, it's probably good enough code review.
And one more thing is, like, so let's say I'm a decent developer, and let's say Pratibha is a good tester, and if we both are like working on a product, and if there is something that being a developer, I have like let's say 2 out of 5 level of knowledge in React, and she has around 3 out of 5, and there are a bit of few concepts that we are not, I mean, as a team we don't know, like let's say a team of 5, there are a few things that we don't know, and everyone thinks, okay, let's go with this way, and it's like kind of like limited to that part. So everyone thinks in the same way in mobbing, and yes, they are all to an extent right, but we cannot find the better part or like improved version.
Okay.
If we are just
All right. So take mob apart. How would you do that individually then?
yeah, that's a good question. Google searches and other things, but
But you can do that. You can do that as I think Barney mentioned on this. We've done loads of stuff where we've written it and decided it's complete bunkum and written it again. So I think, and we learnt stuff together. I didn't know how to do JS testing. As I mentioned, I wasn't a JavaScript person, and James helped me along on that path, and now I really enjoy it. So
I think it comes down a little bit to our engineering stuff. Like, given my natural tendency to sit down and write code, because I'll engineer the hell out of that.
yeah, so me and James are very.
To the point where you look at it 3 months later and think, why is there so much abstraction? You know? I don't think aiming for the optimal solution all the time is necessarily.
yeah, I'm just looking for solutions.
Yeah, just so, does it work now? Has it got enough tests to prove that it works? Probably you're right, so you need to.
Shouldn't that start the test?
Well, yeah, exactly. That should guide the way that.
Just a quick first test. Doesn't pass. Just a quick one.
Got any feedback? Because I'm going to take this out. If you think it's rubbish or you think I've missed something, any pointers would be great. Because I don't know what I'm doing here when I'm standing up here. Sorry.
Do it in front of more people
Yeah. But thanks for your attention anyway.